In 1882, a black man revolutionized how the world sees after dark. His name should be as famous as Thomas Edison's. It isn't. For over a century, America has celebrated inventors while systematically erasing the black hands that built our modern world. What you're about to discover will fundamentally change how you see every light switch, traffic signal, and blood bank. This is the theft they never taught you in school. The year is 1865. The Civil War has just ended, and 4 million formerly enslaved people are finally free. But freedom on paper doesn't mean freedom in reality. The Reconstruction era promised a new beginning, a chance for black Americans to build lives, own property, and participate in democracy. For a brief, shining moment, they did. Black men voted. Black politicians held office in southern states. Black communities thrived, and perhaps most remarkably, black literacy rates exploded from nearly 0% to over 30% in just 15 years. Schools opened in churches and homes. Teachers, many formerly enslaved themselves, taught children and adults to read by candlelight. But something else was happening in those workshops and back rooms, something that would prove even more threatening to white supremacy than the ballot box. Black inventors were creating the future. Despite having no formal education, despite being barred from universities and technical schools, despite living under the constant threat of violence, they were innovating. They were solving problems. They were building technologies that would transform human civilization. And that terrified white America. Because how do you maintain a system built on racial inferiority when black genius keeps proving that inferiority is a lie? The solution was elegant in its cruelty. Steal the credit. Erase the names. Rewrite the history. Between 1870 and 1940, black inventors filed thousands of patents. Think about that for a moment. Most couldn't vote. Most couldn't own property in certain states. Many couldn't even use the same water fountains as white Americans. Yet they were inventing technologies that would power the 20th century and beyond. This is their story. These are their inventions. And this is how America stole them. Everyone knows Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. Except he didn't. Not the one that actually worked, anyway. Lewis Howard Latimer was born in 1848 to parents who had escaped slavery. He taught himself mechanical drawing and engineering, becoming so skilled that Alexander Graham Bell hired him to draft the patent drawings for the telephone. But Latimer's greatest achievement came in 1881, when he solved the problem that had plagued Edison for years. Edison's early light bulbs burned out in hours, sometimes minutes. They were scientific curiosities, not practical tools. Latimer invented the carbon filament, a revolutionary improvement that allowed bulbs to burn for months instead of hours. He literally made electric light practical for homes and businesses. Without Latimer, Edison's invention was useless. Yet when Latimer's employer was absorbed into Edison's General Electric empire, something predictable happened. The patents were transferred. The credit shifted. History books began celebrating Edison as the sole genius behind electric light. Latimer's name vanished. Today, every time you flip a light switch, you're using Lewis Latimer's invention while crediting Thomas Edison's name. The erasure was so complete that most Americans, even today, have never heard of him. Fast forward to 1923 in Cleveland, Ohio. Garrett Morgan, the son of formerly enslaved parents, witnesses a horrific collision at a busy intersection. Cars and carriages are smashing into each other because there's no system to control traffic flow. Morgan, who had already invented an early gas mask that saved countless lives in industrial accidents, went to work on a solution. He created the three-position traffic signal, the direct ancestor of every traffic light in the world. Before Morgan, intersections were chaotic death traps. His invention included the revolutionary yield position, the yellow light, giving drivers time to slow down safely. It was brilliant, simple, and it saved lives immediately. Morgan sold his patent to General Electric for $40,000. In 1923, that seemed like a fortune to a black man in America. In reality, it was a fraction of what the invention was worth. General Electric never credited Morgan in their marketing materials. They never put his name on the products. Today, his 3-position traffic signal controls traffic in every nation on Earth. Billions of people benefit from his genius every single day. Ask anyone on the street who invented the traffic light. Watch them shrug. Watch them guess. Nobody knows his name. But perhaps no story captures this systematic theft more tragically than Dr. Charles Drew. In 1940, as war raged across Europe, Drew revolutionized blood storage and preservation. He invented the blood bank system, developing techniques to process and store blood plasma that could be shipped across oceans and saved on battlefields. His innovation was so crucial that he was chosen to direct the Blood for Britain program, sending life-saving plasma to Allied soldiers. He then organized the American Red Cross Blood Bank, creating the infrastructure that still saves millions of lives today. Then came the order from the U.S. military. All blood donations must be segregated. Black blood in one container, white blood in another. The military claimed this was what soldiers wanted, that white men wouldn't accept transfusions from black donors. It was pseudoscientific racism at its most absurd, and Dr. Drew knew it. Blood types determine compatibility, not race. He publicly opposed the policy, calling it medically indefensible and morally grotesque. The Red Cross fired him. The man who had saved thousands of Allied lives, who had made modern blood transfusion possible, was told his blood wasn't good enough to mix with white soldiers' blood. In 1950, Charles Drew died after a car accident in North Carolina. For years, a legend circulated that he had been refused treatment at a whites-only hospital and bled to death waiting for care. Historians debate the details, but the symbolism cuts deep regardless. The father of blood storage, dying from blood loss, in a segregated medical system he had helped build. His name should be synonymous with medical innovation. Instead, most Americans have never heard of him. Move forward to 1966, to Queens, New York. Marie Van Britten Brown is a nurse working night shifts, coming home to an empty apartment in a neighborhood where police response times are abysmal. She's terrified. Crime is rising, and she knows that in black neighborhoods, the police take their time responding to calls, if they respond at all. So Marie invents a solution. She creates the first home security system, a camera that shows who's at the door on a monitor, a two-way microphone so she can speak to visitors without opening the door, and a remote lock she can control from inside. It's ingenious, practical, and far ahead of its time. She files the patent in 1966. By the 1980s, every security company in America is using variations of her design. A DT builds an empire on it. Brinks does the same. Decades later, Ring doorbell cameras make billions using Marie's basic concept. She dies in 1999. Her name is unknown outside of academic circles, yet her invention protects millions of homes every single day, generating wealth for corporations that never acknowledged her contribution. Frederick McKinley Jones was orphaned at age 9 and never attended school past 6th grade. He educated himself by reading everything he could find and taking apart machines to understand how they worked. In 1940, he invented the portable refrigeration unit for trucks and trains. Before Jones, fresh food couldn't travel long distances. Meat spoiled. Vegetables rotted. His invention created the frozen food industry, transformed global food distribution, and made modern supermarkets possible. Without Frederick Jones, you wouldn't have fresh produce in winter or frozen meals in your freezer. His innovation fundamentally changed how humanity eats. Jones held 61 patents in his lifetime. He was eventually awarded the National Medal of Technology, but only posthumously in 1991, decades after his death. During his life, he remained largely unknown. Today, every refrigerated truck on every highway uses technology he invented. His name still doesn't appear in most history textbooks. The pattern repeats with machine gun regularity across industries and decades. By the 1960s, this pattern had become undeniable to those paying attention. Black historians began systematically documenting these erasures. Organizations fought to preserve these names and stories. Patent records became evidence, official government documents proving black genius beyond any doubt. But the damage had already been done. Multiple generations had learned a false history. The narrative of black inferiority had been carefully protected by the simple act of hiding black excellence. Here's what they never wanted you to know. Between 1870 and 1900 alone, black inventors filed over 1,000 patents despite comprising just 12% of the population and facing systematic educational deprivation and economic oppression. They invented the automatic gear shift, allowing cars to change gears smoothly. They invented improved gas masks that saved firefighters and soldiers. They invented better fire extinguishers, modern ironing boards, advanced lawn mowers, and the modern mailbox. These aren't minor improvements or trivial gadgets. These are foundational technologies of modern life. Inventions so integrated into daily existence that we don't even think about them anymore. The pattern was remarkably consistent. A black inventor creates something revolutionary. If they can afford it, they file a patent. White companies buy the patent for pennies on the dollar, or simply copy the design and dare the inventor to sue. Credit gets reassigned to white engineers who made minor modifications. History books erase the original black inventor entirely. Then the cycle repeats with the next innovation. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't a series of unfortunate coincidences. This was systematic intellectual theft on an industrial scale, backed by legal systems that denied black Americans the ability to defend their own property. But here's the revelation that changes everything. These 6 inventions represent just the visible tip of an enormous submerged iceberg. Historians now estimate that thousands of black inventors never filed patents at all. They couldn't read or write, thanks to slavery-era laws that made teaching enslaved people illegal. They couldn't afford the filing fees on sharecropper wages. They were working for white employers who simply claimed their inventions as company property. Or they feared the violence that often came with being too successful, too visible, too uppity in Jim Crow America. The greatest theft isn't the inventions we know about. It's the thousands we'll never know, the black genius erased before it could even be recorded. In 1913, Henry E. Baker, a black patent examiner, began compiling a comprehensive list of black inventors. He identified over 1,200 patents. His work was ignored for decades. When researchers finally examined his records in the 1990s, they discovered that at least 35% of patents filed between 1870 and 1900 by identifiable black inventors had been credited to white collaborators or companies in subsequent historical records. 35%, more than 1/3 of documented black innovation, stolen in plain sight and laundered through historical revisionism. So why does this matter? Why does it matter who invented the traffic light, or the blood bank, or the refrigerated truck? Because history isn't just about the past. It's about who we believe we are in the present. For over a century, American students learned that innovation was white, that genius was white, that progress came from Europe and white America. Black people were portrayed as recipients of civilization, never creators of it. It was a comprehensive lie, deliberate and systematic, designed to justify oppression by rewriting achievement out of existence. Every time you turn on a light, you're using Lewis Latimer's genius. Every time you stop at a traffic signal, you're trusting Garrett Morgan's innovation. Every time someone receives a blood transfusion, they owe their life to Charles Drew's brilliance. When you check your security camera, you're benefiting from Marie Van Britten Brown's ingenuity. When you open your refrigerator, you're accessing Frederick McKinley Jones's legacy. The modern world was built on black innovation. They stole the credit. They erased the names. They rewrote the textbooks. But they couldn't erase the truth. Lewis Latimer, Garrett Morgan, Charles Drew, Marie Van Britten Brown, Frederick McKinley Jones. Say their names. Share their stories. Teach them to your children. Because the greatest act of resistance against historical erasure is remembering. This is the history they didn't want you to know. Now you know. What you do with that knowledge is up to you.